Hello? I was gonna go from a different place, but as you can see, we're not getting any further down the road. So we'll do today's section from here. So we saw what the second lesson was, and thank you to Mr. Katzenberger, who was the first one to respond with the correct answer. Right? Sacrifice is a part of life. And remember, we have different types of chapters. There's the chapters of Eddie in heaven. There's the chapters. Today is Eddie's birthday, and then there's the chapters what's happening on Earth after Eddie died. Monday, 7:30 a.m. The morning after the accident, Dominguez came to the shop early, skipping his routine of picking up a bagel and a soft drink for breakfast. The park was closed, but he came in anyhow and turned on the water at the sink. He ran his hands under the flow, thinking he would clean some of the ride parts, and then he shut off the water and abandoned the idea. It seemed twice as quiet as it had a minute ago. "What's up?" Willie was at the shop door. He wore a green tank top and baggy jeans. He held a newspaper. The headline read, "Amusement Park Tragedy." "Hard time sleeping," Dominguez said. "Yeah," Willie slumped onto a metal stool. "Me too." He spun a half circle on the stool, looking blankly at the paper. "When do you think they'll open us up again?" Dominguez shrugged. "Ask the police." They sat quietly for a while, shifting their postures as if taking turns. Dominguez sighed. Willie reached into his shirt pocket, fishing for a stick of gum. It was Monday. It was morning. They were waiting for the old man to come in and get the workday started. Kind of interesting reading a passage where it says, "When will they open us up again?" Ha! The third person Eddie meets in heaven. And what will this lesson be? Lost love is still love. Holding anger is poison. It eats from the inside. Or every life has value or meaning. A sudden wind lifted Eddie, and he spun like a pocket watch at the end of a chain. An explosion of smoke engulfed him, swallowing his body in a flume of colors. The sky seemed to pull in until he could feel it touching his skin like a gathered blanket, and then it shot away and exploded into jade. Stars appeared, millions of stars like salt sprinkled across the greenish firmament. Eddie blinked. He was in the mountains now, but the most remarkable mountains, a range that went on forever with snow-capped peaks, jagged rocks, and sheer purple slopes. In a flat between two crests was a large black lake. A moon reflected brightly in its water. Down the ridge, Eddie noticed a flickering of colored light that changed rhythmically every few seconds. He stepped in that direction and realized he was ankle-deep in snow. He lifted a foot and shook it hard. The flakes fell loose, glistening with a golden sheen. When he touched them, they were neither cold nor wet. "Where am I now?" Eddie thought. And once again, he took stock of his body, pressing on his shoulders, his chest, his stomach. His arm muscles remained tight, but his midsection was looser, flabbier. He hesitated, then squeezed his left knee. It throbbed in pain, and Eddie winced. He had hoped upon leaving the captain that the wound would disappear. Instead, it seemed he was becoming the man he'd been on Earth, scars and fat and all. Why would heaven make you relive your own decay? He followed the flickering lights down the narrow ridge. This landscape, stark and silent, was breathtaking, more like how he'd imagined heaven. He wondered for a moment if he'd somehow finished, if the captain had been wrong, if there were no more people to meet. He came through the snow around a rock ledge to the large clearing from which the lights originated. He blinked again, this time in disbelief. There, in the snowy field, sitting by itself, was a boxcar-shaped building with a stainless steel exterior, a red barrel roof, a sign above it that blinked the word "Eat." A diner. You've seen the one in Anchorage, right? Eddie had spent many hours in places like this. They all looked the same. High-back booths, shiny countertops, a row of small paned windows across the front which, from the outside, made customers appear like riders in a railroad car. Eddie could make out figures through those windows now, people talking and gesturing. He walked up the snowy steps to a double-paned door. He peered inside. An elderly couple was sitting to his right, eating pie. They took no notice of him. Other customers sat in swivel chairs at the marble counter or inside booths with their coats on hooks. They appeared to be from different decades. Eddie saw a woman in a 1930s high-collared dress and a long-haired man with the 1960s peace sign tattooed on his arm. Many of the patrons appeared to have been wounded. A black man in a work shirt was missing an arm. A teenage girl had a deep gash across her face. None of them looked over when Eddie rapped on the window. He saw cooks wearing white paper hats and plates of steaming food on the counter awaiting serving. Food in the most succulent colors, deep red sauces, yellow butter creams. He moved along to the last booth to the right-hand corner. He froze. What he saw, he could not have seen. "No," he heard himself whisper. He turned back from the door. He drew deep breaths. His heart pounded. He spun around and looked again, then banged wildly on the window panes. "No!" Eddie yelled. "No, no!" He banged until he was sure the glass would break. "No!" He kept yelling until the word he wanted, a word he hadn't spoken in decades, finally formed in his throat. He screamed that word then. He screamed it so loudly that his head throbbed, but the figure inside the booth remained hunched over, oblivious, one hand resting on the table, the other holding a cigar, never looking up, never, no matter how many times Eddie howled it over and over again, "Dad! Dad! Dad!" So who is going to be the third person Eddie meets in heaven? We talked before about the relationship that Eddie had with two men in this book. One with his father and one with the character named Mickey Shea. And how different those words. And if you can remember the information that Mitch Albom gave us so far about the relationship between Eddie and his father. In the meantime, we have another quick little quiz. Where are we, or where would we have gone to videotape this segment? Hint, this is where Mrs. Gustkey and I come in the fall or late summer to gather fireweed to make fireweed jelly. This is the road out there, and in the background you see over on that side. So when you watch this, if you will reply in the class stream, if we could keep all comments with the class stream so I don't have to go looking for them, so it's easier for me. Again, wash your hands, sanitize, get some fresh air. Bye.